Traveling to the Patagonian region of South America is a test of endurance and perseverance. It is a remote wilderness extending southward nearly to the bottom of the earth. The tip of the Patagonian Peninsula lies only 500 miles from Antarctica. High winds blow from the sea, from the Andes, the massive mountain range that divides the continent. The Patagonian region of Chile is carved into a masterpiece of expansive prairies, sea, and rock. It is awesome country, where the geography still dominates man and wildlife abounds. The condor, symbol of the Andean regions, soars up to 18,000 feet in the air, searching the landscape for food. Beneath the condor's 9-foot wingspan, a cornucopia of waterfowl, raptors, and small mammals populate this wildest of wild regions. Curiously, there are few large mammals existing on the expansive foothills and prairies of the region. The Guanaco, camel of the south, is the only large wild grazing mammal in Patagonia. Dr. William Franklin, wildlife ecologist from Iowa State University, has been doing research on the wild Guanaco in Chile since 1976. He has fashioned an international research project in order to document the unusual behavior and ecology of the Guanaco of Patagonia. The Guanaco is a member of the camel family, whose ancestors evolved on the plains of North America. The early camels roamed the North American continent for millions of years before dispersing to Asia and South America. Two distinct camel species evolved in South America, the Guanaco and its wild cousin, the vicuña. The ancient Incan Indians may have used the Guanaco to breed two other domestic camels, the Lama and the alpaca. Today, these animals still carry burdens and bear fine wool for the Andean Indians of Peru and Bolivia. The Guanaco was once abundant over a broad range, from the arid Andean slopes of northern Peru to the cold lowland forests of Tierra del Fuego. In the mid-1800s, Darwin, during his voyage on the Beagle, visited Patagonia, the remote 1,000-mile stretch of land at the base of the continent, shown here. Darwin viewed what was the largest, densest distribution of Guanacos in South America. Guanaco numbers have reduced quickly since Darwin's time. They are currently endangered in the alpine foothills of Peru and Chile, while in the arid lands of Argentina their numbers remain unknown, though greatly reduced. Dr. Franklin's research has focused on two study areas in southern Chile, Estancia Cameron on the island of Tierra del Fuego, and Torres del Paine National Park in the eastern foothills of the Andes. Guanacos are open habitat animals. They graze in groups from 5 to 200 animals. Adult Guanacos weigh an average of 250 pounds, or the size of a large white-tailed deer. They live long lives, up to 15 years in the wild. Clear differences between the sexes, or sexual dimorphism, do not exist, but careful observation reveals subtle behavioral and morphological differences. For example, a lowered tail posture during urination or the presence of testes identifies the male. Communication among animals is essential in the herd environment. Guanacos communicate aggression by body movements, spitting, ear position, and tail posture. The lower the ear, the higher the level of aggression. The higher and straighter the tail, the greater the antagonistic intensity. Scent marking by defecation is another important form of communication. Guanaco groups are not randomly scattered around, but are organized into definite social groupings. There are two distinct social units, male groups and family groups. Understanding the distribution of social groups in the Guanaco is an important part of research. Population census is performed regularly by CONAF, the Chilean Forestry and Park Service, to determine population size and composition. Dr. Franklin's research team constructed grids with evenly spaced posts in the field, which are superimposed on maps of the study area to pinpoint Guanaco movement. Field workers use tags and natural markings to identify and record individual behavior within family and male groups. In the evenings, Dr. Franklin discusses the day's research with his crew.
Here at Piney, we're now going to be involved intensively with male groups, and these large groups of males that you see are surplus males that are not territorial, and they essentially got their origin when the young males were forced out of the family groups originally. They join an all-male group, and there they remain for the next 4 to 6 years before they themselves become territorial.
Some of the basic questions researchers are seeking to answer are, why are there two distinctive social groups? What advantage are these groups to the individual animals? How is their social system an adaptation to their environment? Dr. Franklin began his research by studying sedentary family groups on Tierra del Fuego, where the Andean range at last meets the sea at the tip of the South American continent. The study area was a large ranch or estancia named Cameron, 250,000 acres extending from the Useless Bay to the Argentinian border. The main industry of the region is sheep ranching, and the woolies clearly dominate the land and its resources. Competition between sheep and the Guanaco has been severe. But in southern Chile, on large sheep ranches bordering forests, Guanacos have survived in greatest numbers. On these southernmost pampas, Guanacos and sheep can coexist peacefully with proper management. Historically, 3 Indian tribes lived on the island of Tierra del Fuego. One of these, the Ona, dominated the mountainous interior of the island. They were a Guanaco-dependent culture, using the animal for meat, clothing, and shelter. When Europeans began establishing estancias on the island at the turn of the century, the Ona and other Fuegian tribes disappeared quickly due to persecution and the introduction of foreign diseases. The Guanaco fared little better. Chulengos, or Guanaco young, were prized for their soft fur. Their skins were sold in quantity to merchant ships bound for Europe. The men who hunted Chulengos made a lucrative business of pursuing the species, almost to the brink of extinction. Hunting has been prohibited in Chile since 1970.
$150 por cada libra.
Close cooperation between ranch managers and Guanaco conservationists has been essential to Guanaco survival on private lands. Dr. Franklin and other investigators have worked closely with ranch owners to build an understanding of conservation goals. An observation blind was established near Rusfin, a small village within the estancia Cameron. where family groups could be observed in all weather on a daily basis. In summer, family groups on Tierra del Fuego have a predictable daily routine. They move out of the forest by 8 a.m. And around 10 a.m., the entire group moves to the prime feeding area close to the Rusfin River. These meadows are lush islands of unusually palatable forage for the Guanaco. At the river, the group will feed, play, rest, and dust bathe. Dust bathing is an important means to maintain a fine-fibered coat that resists the cold wind, rain, and snow. In the evening, the group will slowly retreat back into the forest. They use forest vegetation for protection from the wind while resting, as well as a supplementary food resource. The Guanaco is a ruminant that eats both grasses and shrubs, a highly adaptable feeding strategy. Each family group confines its daily activity to a specific grazing area, which the adult male defends. At Rusfin, there are 4 family groups on a bog meadow bordered by forest and the Rusfin River. Each family group has a specifically designated territory. Although these lines are imaginary, they are very real to the territorial males. This data map shows the 4 territories defended by territorial males and occupied by their family groups. The males will aggressively display, bite, and spit at one another to defend these territories. The male chases all intruders out of his carefully guarded area. When invaders, in red, enter the territory, the male, in yellow, runs to defend it. The group represented by the large orange dot quietly feeds by the river. The male returns to his group until another invasion. Each day is a succession of these disturbances. Males defend their territories from other mature males, whole family groups, young males, and females. Territories in Rusfin average 80 acres. The male travels up to 3 miles at a gallop each day, 5 to 7 times the distance covered by females and their young. The value of having a permanently occupied feeding territory outweighs the enormous strain placed on the male to defend it. Feeding territories are a predictable source of food, as well as a socially stable and safe location for females to raise young. Before or after territorial encounters, the male often does a defecation and urination display on specific dung piles that only the territorial male uses. However, the locations of dung piles do not correspond to territorial boundaries. On Tierra del Fuego, the only real predator is man. Ranchers herding horses, sheep, and cattle close to the river boundary pose a possible threat to the family group. When danger appears, the Guanacos give an alarm call. If the cause of alarm does not withdraw, the family group will quickly retreat to a safer distance. They continue to be alert until the danger has disappeared. Alarm calls may serve to confuse the predator, alert it that it has been detected, or warn group members. If danger persists, the animals will escape to their forest haven. Each female bears 1 chulengo in the summer months of December and January. Females have a long 11.5-month gestation period, an adaptation that allows the energy-consuming activities of mating and birth to take place during summer, when forage is the most productive and available. Chulengos are able to walk within a half hour of birth and run within a day. The yearlings, or last year's young, now 12 months old, remain with the family group for a second summer. This additional parental investment gives the young animals more time to grow within the protective family environment. Yearlings continue to nurse into their second year. Thus, many females have 2 young to feed each summer. A strong attachment remains between the female and her yearling, but the male becomes increasingly antagonistic toward the yearlings. Yearlings crouch down when they are close to the male. Their tails curl forward and necks lower to the ground. Yearling tails flap up in nervous attention when the male passes by, a striking reminder of their dependence on the territorial male. This appeasement behavior is called a submissive crouch. As the summer progresses, yearlings can be seen following the male around. Even when the male is alarm calling at passing ranchers, the young animals persist in pestering the male, who tries to ignore them. In the course of a normal day, there are aggressive disputes among members of the group. Adults are dominant over young, and males are usually dominant over females. Because the Guanaco gestation is so long, the mating season follows closely on the heels of the birth season. Recent mothers are repeatedly inspected by the male to assess if they are biologically ready for mating. When a male detects a female in estrus, he initiates copulation. In this fixed territorial system, females are readily available to the male for mating. Guanaco males do not need bright colorations to attract mates, nor must they win access each season to the female population by fighting with large horns or antlers. This may explain why there is no sexual dimorphism in the species. Perhaps out of curiosity, the young do not hesitate to investigate the copulation. As the young animals grow larger, their food intake increases. Only a limited number of animals can realistically remain in a group with a limited feeding territory. In addition, inbreeding of family members would inevitably lead to weaker, less viable offspring. For these reasons, the yearlings increasingly become the victims of the male's aggression. A yearling, possibly tired of its underdog status, tries to join the neighboring family group. Note the tail curl forward in a submissive position once the yearling crosses the river into its home territory again. The female defends her yearling up to its last days in the group. February, the last month of summer. The yearling's last month within its family group. As the weather turns nasty, the male's tolerance with his yearling is lost. On a rainy day of February, this yearling is forced from its family group forever. Only the female will continue to try to protect it from its ultimate fate. After the yearlings are expelled from their family group, they must find another group to join. Young males join male groups until they reach maturity. Yearling females find a new family group within a few weeks. It is not long before the chulengos, now 3 months old, must appease the male. They too are destined for expulsion. Torres del Paine, a preserve where guanacos and all wildlife are free to roam without interference. In this rolling, treeless terrain, male groups are easier to observe. 80% of all guanaco males are found in male groups. In the summer, large male groups ranging from 20 to 100 animals provide protection from predators and territorial males. This strength that comes from numbers allows male groups to occupy distinct feeding zones, separate from the smaller, more numerous family group territories. Play and play fighting in male groups is a continuation of the play among chulengos in the family group. But now it is the beginning of preparation for future territorial encounters. As the males approach territorial age, play and play fighting become more like real fighting. Pairs of older males often break out of the male groups and engage in long, hard chases. The hardiest survivors of the male group life go on to establish territories of their own. Alone for months, they defend their territories, waiting for females to join them. But not all males will be able to establish a territory. Guanaco male groups represent a population surplus. Although guanacos will continue to be protected by law, the CONAF Conservation Guards conduct a hunt each year to remove surplus males from high-density areas. In this way, funds can be raised from the sale of meat and wool products for further guanaco conservation efforts. In the winter at Torres del Paine, the animals become more mobile. Territories dissolve, and all ages of both sexes herd together into winter congregations. Starvation is a common cause of guanaco mortality. Pumas are the most important predator. Foxes take what the puma leaves behind, and the condor and caracaras fight for the remains. The guanaco has evolved to derive maximum use of this windy, unforgiving land. We have learned that the division of populations into family groups and male groups has helped reproduction. Non-breeding males are excluded from territories occupied by breeding males and their family groups. Females in family groups have the advantage of raising young in a secure territory with abundant food. Males benefit by having resident females available for mating. Thus, non-producing males are kept from competing for forage with females and chulengos. Yearlings are expelled each year to prevent overcrowding the fixed territories. Behavior and environment are a double door that swings in two directions. The Guanaco's social system is a selected product of the land, while the land, in turn, is efficiently utilized by the Guanaco. The endurance and specialized behavior of the Guanaco enable it to survive in the severe, awe-inspiring environment of Patagonia.